Ever met someone and thought, man, I want to have the impact she has? That's how I felt when I first met today's guest. She is a walking example of someone who saw a need and just got to work and built something that's truly impactful to meet that need. And that's happened throughout the course of her life, which you're going to hear about. Welcome to Legacy Her Way. This is the podcast where we explore how women define and build legacy on their own terms. I'm your host, Tanya Hendricks. Legacy isn't just what we leave behind someday. It's about the choices we're making right now, who we're building for, what we're building and preserving, and how we create peace of mind and harmony along the way. Today's conversation with Jennifer Holliday brings a story shaped by experience, connection, and drive. We're talking about legacy beyond the resume and what truly matters in this season of life. So whether you're listening while driving, you're folding laundry, maybe you're taking a quiet moment for yourself, I hope you hear something in this conversation with Jennifer that reflects your own journey or inspires you to start a project that you're like, I see a need there. Maybe I can fill that need, because you're going to hear that from Jennifer today. All right, so let's get started. Jennifer Holliday is the first ever military family liaison for the state of Alabama through its initiative, Heroes Welcome. She is a military spouse with over 21 years of life experience with her military husband, to include seven wartime deployments and serving as Redstone Arsenal Garrison Commander. For those of you listening in Huntsville, you know how big that is. All right, so she is a dedicated advocate for military families and service members. Throughout her career, she has cultivated programs and networks across the local military spouse, veteran, civilian, and federal communities. She has a servant's heart, y'all. She really, truly does. And she is ready to serve her nation, state, and community. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Hi, Tanya. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to be here. I was truly, when we first met, I was just in awe of all that you've accomplished. And
Thank you.
your heart and passion for military spouses, for the military members, but particularly military spouses, and bringing that sense of connection for spouses. And I told you then, I'm going to say it here publicly, I want to thank you for your service. I am a firm believer that a military spouse deserves our appreciation and thanks just as much as the service member deserves it, because you are serving alongside your spouse as they're going out 7 wartime deployments and whatever it may be. So thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you've had quite the career in life. And for those of you listening, if you want to read her whole bio, go to the Heroes Welcome website. I would spend the entire episode reading through her bio and all that she's accomplished. But for this season of your life, Jennifer, what does legacy or success mean to you?
Oh boy. There's a lot there. Probably family for one. And we have grown a little family that is actually currently all still here in Huntsville. We'll see what our 3 adult kids end up doing over time. But it's kind of a long-standing military spouse mantra: leave it better than you found it. Mm-hmm. We're constantly moving. We're constantly meeting new people and coming into places where, we may have experienced something before that is, it's always going to be different the next place you go. So, can we just leave it and not worry about it or experience it and kind of go in our own little corner? Or do we get involved, and not to try to come in like a bull in a china shop and fix everybody's problems, but use our experiences from other places to say, hey, we've seen it this way. Would you be interested in doing something a little different? And then as you move forward to the next place, leaving that behind you and moving on. But, a lot of the time that carries over to the next group or person or whatever it is. And so kind of, I hadn't really thought about it much before getting ready for today, but kind of leave a little legacy trail everywhere we go, often unintentionally, which is kind of neat to look back on.
Well, I want to talk about that little legacy trail. and
Mhm.
what you have done, and well, you can start with what you're doing now, but I think what you're doing now is really a culmination of what you've done through the years. So
Yeah.
what's that little legacy trail that you have left?
Um, it was nothing I ever intended to do. It was not being very introverted, being very I was never one to be volunteering and getting out and doing things. I was very internal, and I when my husband got to a point in his career where he was in a command position, and we had a he was part of one of the things that they have to do is lead a family readiness group. I think the terms have changed now. We've been retired for a few years, but it has changed over time. It used to be family support group, it's family readiness group. Um, the different service branches have different terminology, but basically getting the families together and sharing information with
Mhm,
them from the unit. Is kind of the main thing, and especially during those deployments, being able to be connected and share information. And the very first meeting that we ever had, I did not want to talk to the group. It was not a very big group. It was maybe 15 people. But we sat at the table. We had planned out what we were going to do, what he wanted the program to look like for him. And we sat in front of everyone, and he had the binder out, and he was saying the things. And um, he knows me. So he said something wrong, which I kind of kicked him under the table and corrected. And we moved on, and a few minutes later, same thing happened. And I started to pick up on it a little bit the second time. This wasn't just this was an intentional mistake to get me to say something. And so by the time he did it the third time, I kicked him under the table, I corrected him, but then I also grabbed the binder. And that moment of grabbing that binder and saying, okay, here's what we're doing, and taking it, it wasn't me taking on um, his role,
mhm.
because technically the commander, it owns that program.
Right.
But most of the time, the spouse, if they're married, will be the one who runs it, just
Mhm,
because there's more, connection to the spouses and the families, those kinds of things. And that's where it kind of all started. I kind of took on that role again unintentionally, and then ran with it unintentionally. We went to the next place, and we landed at Fort Bragg 3 weeks after September 2001, and it
wow.
was crazy. And he was going to work with the Special Forces unit, and um, they didn't have family readiness things set up the way that we thought they would have.
Mhm,
They had their small group things, but at the higher headquarters, they didn't have anything. And so after a few months, I ended up being asked to start one. And so I
mhm,
did. And I'm very creative in kind of everything that I do. And so I love starting new things.
mhm,
And that was the first of a few along the way that we either started or did more with along the way. And but each time we would move to a new place, and we would kind of level up, and it would be a different experience. But at the heart of it was always just sharing information, making connections with the spouses, with the families, with the service members. Yeah, part of the reason that I did that and kept doing it was I don't like not knowing things. So
mhm,
I ask questions. I ask him questions. I ask everybody questions. I ever since I was about five, the story my mom tells is that the kindergarten teacher pulled her aside one day and told her that I was a sponge, and I was not talking. I wasn't, didn't want to answer questions, but I was soaking it all in. And
mhm,
that's what I continue to do, is just gather up everything I can, um, and share it. And so that was a lot of what we do with the family readiness groups, is just sharing and caring, really.
mhm.
it
Yeah.
sounds it sounds silly, but that's kind of at the heart of it what it is. And so I love knowing the things, and I love being able to share out and be able to answer questions when other people ask.
Mhm,
Um, and, and that's just kind of the build up from that first pulling the binder away all the way to with this role, and being told we want to have this position, we want you to be it, but we don't, no one else in the country is doing it, we don't know what it could or should be.
mhm.
essentially, here's your silver platter, go figure it out. Yeah, absolutely, sign me up.
Yeah.
I am here for all of that. And so it really has been a buildup over the years to the point of, a state level position that never existed before. It's still kind of blows my mind.
Well, what is it? What are you doing now?
So the title is Alabama Military Family Liaison. The position is basically serving as subject matter expert to the lieutenant governor in the state through the Military Stability Foundation on all things quality of life for military families. So if you think of different quality of life topics, whether that's, employment, education, housing, pretty much anything, during the day,
Mhm.
I can be involved in it. Now, obviously, I can't do everything all the time, even though I kind of try sometimes. And
Yeah.
uh, that is one of the things I have to be careful about, boundaries and things. But the kind of the main topics usually are workforce development, spouse employment,
Mhm.
child care, and education, both for the adults and for the kids. Those kind of the pretty much the main areas. And so being able to have my experience and my knowledge that I came to the position with, plus continuing to grow it, because living here in Huntsville and the experiences that we've had, we've been very connected in this area, but
Mhm.
I am working throughout the entire state now. And so building networks and making connections across the state to support the spouses and families that are, not just when a lot of time people think of military and they think active duty and they think
Mhm.
about those deployments and things, but the term that we use is military connected. So active duty, National Guard, reserves, veteran retiree, Gold Star families, you name it. If they are military connected, then I work within that realm to basically the goal is to try to improve quality of life for those military families living in Alabama and the ones as they're moving in, helping them get settled and get connected to the community and all of that. So it's a lot, and it sounds like a lot, but I somehow have managed to kind of navigate it to where, even though I am creative, I'm not a straight line
Mhm.
thinker. And so it's not, oh, I see this and I need to do that. It's definitely that kind of squiggly line that gets me to things. So it's fun to be able to be that flexible in this
Mhm.
position and be able to ping from one thing to another. Not at all diagnosed with ADHD or anything like that, but I definitely have that. I would not do well sitting in a cubicle for 8 hours.
Yes, yes. I can see that having talked to you before, and now this. I find it very interesting, and I mentioned this in the intro, is that, I mean, you just saw a need, and I know that your husband kind of pulled you in a little bit, but you just saw that there was a need. Like, there's something missing here. Like, you as a military spouse, you knew what you needed, and you saw what was lacking, and you kind of stepped in at the early stages to let's just build something to support military spouses. And as you said, you don't like not knowing things, so you want to know things. And so I imagine, because you're that type of person, you probably thought, well, maybe other military spouses want to know things too. And what can I do? What can we do to give them that knowledge? Is that kind of where it kind of started?
It is, and it's funny. I never at the time I wasn't thinking about it that way. It was
Mhm.
just do and ask a question, get an answer, and figure it out from there, kind of thing. So one of the the kind of more recent and bigger examples of that is when we were first coming here and knowing the job that he was going to be in. I talked to some families who had come down the year before, and we came from a little place in Pennsylvania called Carlisle Barracks, it's the Army War College, and it's a tiny little post that all they have there is the college.
Mhm.
It's a senior leader education, and you're there for about a year, and it was very tight knit. It's very small. Is living on that installation is kind of like stepping back into the 50s. The kids are playing outside in the backyard till 10 o'clock with the lights,
Nice.
street lights out. It was great. But then coming down here, which I also love, but it's very spread out. And
Yes.
I will say the number one thing that every single family told me was that the biggest challenge was feeling disconnected. going from that to this. It's a huge difference. And it's kind of a bit of an extreme example, but that's what we, the military families face every time they go somewhere is, what's the next challenge? What's it going to be like? Where are we going to live? Where the kids going to go to school? All the different things that they have to figure out. And if you move into a place and you feel disconnected before you even get started, it makes it that much more challenging. So the two things that I did, because we didn't have an FRG here. We don't have people deploying, and we didn't have we have obviously a lot of civilians on Redstone, and so it's a little different environment. But I wanted everybody to be included, and that's kind of another part of what I like to do is make sure, like with that military connected terminology, I want everybody to feel like they are included in that group, that belongs in that group. And sometimes, there are things like I created a website to say, okay, here's all the information. You can get the information. And then a spouse group that in the military, traditionally, we call it, each unit has a coffee group, typically, that the spouses are, the commander's spouse will usually lead it, and everybody gets together once a month or so. And I had a couple of amazing mentors later in his career. One of them, instead of everybody sitting around somebody's house and eating and chatting, which is super fun and love to do those, but one took us around to different restaurants in the area. Every month it was somewhere different. And then the other one created different experiences. And so having that in the back of my mind, and then this idea of trying to get people connected, that I said, well, we're going to have a coffee group, but it's not going to be a coffee group. It's more of a social adventure group. And we're going to include the military connected people on the installation, but also because of all the connectivity here, I don't care who it is. I had people in the community, I had civilian workers on the arsenal. So it was open to, you had to have access to the installation, because we did do some stuff on the installation, but mostly it was things in the community, and it just kept kind of growing the more I would have ideas and stuff. So figuring out ways to help people connect, sometimes when they don't even realize that they need, it's just a fun thing to do. And then, it becomes, oh, wait, that's kind of an interesting group, or we're doing different things. And then the information can flow from that. It's not just a boring, we have to go listen to, like we call it mandatory fun. Like the things you have to go do. Well, I want it, if we're going to have mandatory fun, I want to try to make it actually fun if I can.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Legacy Her Way is proudly sponsored by Huntsville Estate Planning Lawyer, because legacy isn't just about wealth. It's about protecting your family, your vision, and everything you've worked for. Build boldly, preserve it wisely. Throughout the years, was there a time, and maybe you haven't reached that point, but was there a time that you realized that you were building a legacy? Like you said, this little legacy trail. Was there a time that as you were doing each of these installations that you're like, oh, this is something that's lasting, it's going to have a lasting impact?
I think, again, not something I normally think too much about, but I think the first time that it dawned on me that there was a little something to that, leave it better than you found it. We were at Fort Bragg that first time. That was, 2001 timeframe. We were there for a few years, and then went to Fort Leavenworth in Kansas for a school year for one of his schools. And we actually left that early. He technically graduated, but we didn't stay through with the graduation because the same unit was deploying again, and they pulled him back, asked him if he wanted his old job back, and he did. And so we got to go back to Fort Bragg again, which is amazing. Fort Bragg, anywhere you go, people, oh, I love it or hate it or whatever. 99.9 times out of 100, it's the people.
Yeah.
And so we got to go back, and we were excited for that. And when we got there, a different command team was in place from the people that I had worked with before, because it was less than a year change out, but that's all we need is a few months, and things change a lot. And the commander's wife was the FRG leader, and she had a newsletter, and she was doing all the things. And somewhere in there, I don't even remember the conversation. I just remember that there was mention of having continued. They wanted to continue what I had started,
Mhm.
and that was so that was like, oh, it really does work that way
Yeah.
because most of the time we don't. Sometimes you'll go back to an installation a few years later and those kinds of things, but we don't always go back exactly to the same unit. It's
Mhm.
usually a different unit or a different level, things like that. We were going right back to where we had been, and being able to see that result was kind of a, I won't say a wake up call because it wasn't anything bad, or it just was kind of a little light bulb that was like, oh, this is impactful. They did keep it going. That's great. I'm excited for that, and I'm excited for the fact that it's a little bit different. That they're growing it and changing it into what they need now, and that is really kind of cool.
Well, you realize, and congratulations, you saw firsthand how you did leave it better than you found it.
Mhm.
And so you were living and still live that mantra, leave it better
Mhm.
than you found it. So
Yeah.
that was, I'm sure that was an exciting moment to see. That was like, "Oh, this does work. I can do
Yeah.
this."
It was.
As you were growing through the years, and up to this point, has there been something that, was maybe difficult, that you had to kinda navigate a very difficult situation? And if so, how did you navigate that?
Um, there have definitely been some of those. I'd say kind of because I can't quite pull a good story example right now, but generally trying to communicate, trying to understand what the other person or people were dealing with, and you know, and my kids roll their eyes all the time. So 99, I said it earlier too. So I'm not a statistics person. I'm not a
Uh-huh.
numbers person, but I'll say most of the time, our problems could be solved or at least alleviated by better and more communication.
Yes.
I am a communications person. I am not perfect. In fact, it just happened the other day. I did not communicate well. And it was fine. It was not a big deal, but it's like, oh yeah, I have to remember to like slow down and myself make sure that I'm, communicating all of the information. Um, but but just trying to, instead of hearing something and going as we kind of say high and right, just off the deep end of, oh, it's terrible, stepping back and say, okay, that doesn't sound good, but it's not quite right. Like there's got to be something more to it, and kind of having conversations and asking questions and trying to figure out what ground truth looks like first, and
Yeah.
then what do we need to do to help alleviate the problem. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, um, but just trying to build the communication a little bit better and not just react, not just jump to an assumption or a stereotype. And again, seriously not perfect at any of this. This is not like the ultimate goal is for us all to be able to do these things, and if we're human, it's not going to happen. But being better at it and just trying to work on some of those things. And so yeah, and if there is a challenge or a difficult situation, trying to work through it, and navigate through that, and sometimes it leads to creating something new, or it uh, generates an idea of something, or it's um, kind of a well, we can talk about some of the examples later, but just trying to figure out where we could find a better path, like.
Yeah. Okay. And I think communication is so key.
Okay.
In fact, this morning I was journaling. One of the things I wrote down was just communication. When you get clarity with the people around you, because you may assume, you jump to conclusions, you assume something, but then you communicate with that person about that thing, and it just brings real clarity. And it actually reduces stress for me
Mhm.
anyway. It reduces stress of, okay, so it's not as bad as I thought. It's not this thing. I'm like you though. I'm a work in progress when it comes to that. I still something happens, I go, "What happened?"
Right.
But you just, like, calm down, just chill out and
Yep.
communicate and figure out, like, the ground as you said, the ground truth.
Mhm.
So, you've had, I know you mentioned earlier you got 3 adult children.
Mhm.
How have you managed, and I don't really like to use the term ambition because I don't think you were ambitious in what you were doing, you were just stepping in to fill a need.
Mhm.
But as you were building these different programs, whether it's at Fort Bragg or at Redstone Arsenal, or now with the state of Alabama with the Military Heroes Project or initiative, how have you balanced handling all these projects, family, and rest? Because rest is so incredibly important. So, how do you balance all of that?
I don't.
Or I should say,
I
let me
just
let me back
don't.
up. Let me back up. I
It
don't like use I don't like the term balance because I just don't think
Yeah.
we'll ever get balance. I like the term harmony. How did you find harmony in all of that?
Um, I like that a lot better too. We talk about life balance, work life balance, all those things, and there was one of gosh, it was probably it's hard to think about. I think it was more than 10 years ago now. It was we were at one of the schools for my husband. They had some spouse things, and the Surgeon General of the Army at that point had was speaking, and she said the same thing. She like work life balance, all of that. And I'm not going to be able to remember the quote right now, but it was um, it was not balance. It was more about priorities
Mhm,
and kind of being able to navigate through and say, okay, this is the important thing right now. This is the important thing today, and I will offset that later. And so it's not really again a creative. I'm not a process person. I'm not
mhm,
a I'll do this and then that. But trying to have always carve out something, some time for me to offset all of taking care of everybody else. It's
mhm.
I used to tell spouses all the time, especially when we were in the middle of it and doing things, you have to have a hobby. You have to have something. It needs to be early on I thought, oh, just reading and shopping would be plenty. No. You need to have something you can call your own. It doesn't and it should not be work. It shouldn't be your career. There's something that you like to do. For me, back hasn't I haven't done this in a really long time, but it was crafting and scrapbooking and things, getting that creative energy out
Uh-huh,
so that I could feel like I accomplished something that was not for anybody but me. And then I could take care of the kids and do all the crazy things that were happening while he was deployed, because that's when everybody's sick and everything breaks.
uh-huh,
And so um, just kind of realizing that it is um, the the end goal is not to make anybody else actually happy about what you're doing. It's not to um, show that you're doing something that somebody else thinks you should be doing. You're doing what you want to do, how you want to do it, and if that is successful, that's great. If it's not and you can adjust, that's great too. But doing things because it looks good in other people's eyes or because you think it's what you should be doing. Our military spouse communities had a long history of that, doing things that we're supposed to do. And now we're at a point where, we don't really follow that model anymore.
yeah,
But there's still kind of a concept of what to do and how to do it. I love breaking through that and showing people that, you don't have to do it that way. There's still some things like you don't want to be you have to do it within the bounds of what exists,
right,
and you can create some things within that, but you don't have to be the stereotype.
mhm,
That's kind of a through line for me, that it's not about being a mom or a military spouse or having a career and be like, this is the thing that I'm supposed to do and this is how I should do it. It's finding your own path. And I'm not sure if I'm still answering the same question actually.
I love what
Went off
I
on
love
a
the path you've
tangent, but
gone down. I love the
yeah.
path that you've gone down because I think it is important that, this kind of is almost a full circle moment going back to the beginning where I asked, "What is your idea of success?" And part of the reason for this podcast is for women to identify their own idea of success, their own
Mhm,
idea of legacy, and that's what you were just speaking to. Like,
mhm,
your hobby was, crafting. You had to find something that that's 100% yours. That's not
but
a spouse's, it's not your children's, it's yours. And whether you're creating it and it's something that's only for you to enjoy, you're you're defining your own purpose and your own sense of self in doing that. But you can also be creative and think outside the box. It doesn't have to be everyone else's idea of
right.
success. And that's kind of what you were just speaking to, which I certainly appreciate, and leads to our last question. Um, actually, let me see. I may want to ask you another one real quick. I do want to ask one other question before I get to the
Okay,
final question I ask everybody.
sure.
With all that you've accomplished, at the different, and it doesn't have to be in professional, but with your children, your family, the different installations you've been to, Fort Bragg, Redstone, and now working in state government, impacting lives across the state, like any
Mhm,
military connected person across the state.
mhm,
What do you hope people will remember about you?
mhm. Um, oh gosh, that's a hard one. I don't know. Probably being a friend, being and one of the things that I do, and this is it's gonna sound a little cheesy. I kind of serve as welcome wagon to the state. I kind of serve as that, for people who haven't been here before, especially, or don't have, connections in the state yet. I I wanted to make sure that this position would be flexible enough that yes, I can go and speak to groups. Yes, I can do podcasts. I can do different things. I can speak to pretty much anything at this point, despite still not considering myself a public speaker. I've kind of, grown into that, I guess, a little bit, which is still amazing. But um, I sit down, have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever it is. If somebody's coming in, we can do it virtually if they're not here yet, or if
Mhm.
they live down in Mobile and I'm not on a trip to Mobile.
Yeah,
But having a just being accessible and being a friend, being um I don't know, supportive, I guess.
very good.
Yeah, that's a
That's
hard one.
great. That's a great way to be remembered. It really is. And that's not just for the people that you are impacting and serving in the community and statewide, but also for your family. Just having that
For sure.
connection.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
connection.
I can't tell you how much I love the fact that my kids appear to to have we have, you know, we've been through a lot, but um they will call, they will tell me all the things. They will, and I love when they just brain dump. I could have a million other things going on, but if they are gonna reach out to mom and say, "Hey, here's how my day went," I I think that's pretty successful. So
Yep. And that's the priority for you to
yeah,
make that time
for
for
sure.
them. So that goes back to, um, your identity, definition of success and
Mhm.
what that looks like. So, all right, the final question, I ask everyone this question.
Mhm.
Finish this sentence. Legacy her way means.
Um, following your own path and leaving that trail of things, whether it is, like you said, family or anything, hopefully leaving a little bit of breadcrumbs along the way, um across everything, and having, being able to look back and say, yep, I did that,
Mhm.
and yep, they're remembering that. That's pretty cool.
That is cool, and you have certainly embodied and you have left a legacy of leave it better than you found it. So I think you have fully stepped into that mantra, and you certainly have lived up to that, and I applaud you
Yep.
for just seeing needs, stepping in,
Mhm.
not because you're trying to build a legacy, not because you're trying to be ambitious about doing something, but like,
Right.
This I want to know these things. I want to share these things. I want to
Mhm.
help families be connected. I want to help them feel comfortable in their new space, or make sure they're comfortable with their surroundings. And so thank you for your service.
Thank you.
There will be in the show notes, we're going to have links to the different initiatives that Jennifer's involved in. So you can get involved if there's a way to get involved. You can learn more about it if you're a military spouse, if you're coming into the state, or if you're military connected in any way. Reach out to the heroes. What heroes welcome?
Here's welcome. Yeah.
Heroes welcome. I was seeing the logo, and I'm like, okay, I have a photograph of me. I was
That's
seeing the
good.
logo.
That's good. I love that.
So reach out to Heroes Welcome. It's a website. It's a state government initiative, and Alabama is truly, in my perspective, and I think in talking with Jennifer, really military friendly and trying to help any military connected person, because we do love our service members here, and we
Mhm.
love our service member spouses in addition to that. Thank you all for joining us today on Legacy Her Way. If this episode spoke to you, you can do a couple of things. One, share it. I want the people in and around Alabama in particular who are military connected to hear Jennifer, hear what her heart is, and hear what she's working on for the state of Alabama to help military connected persons in the area. So share this episode so others can hear it. Subscribe to Legacy Her Way so that you never miss an episode, and you certainly don't want to miss the next episode. Thank you all so much for joining us, and I'll see you in the next conversation.